spending time trying to understand is too much effort. Anyways, man, we can talk about something. Boy, give a second.
I'm not talking about abortion. That's boring. Abortion is boring. Those have
What?
been like literally the only thing we've ever debated.
I don't get to talk to you about your utility. I mean, what normative view do you hold again?
I have a normative view that I made myself. I could defend it, but I'm not sure that you'd be interested because you're not familiar with it.
Yeah, I don't. If it's something I won't be interested in, then there's no point. Cause I just disagree whether or not like your position about abortion's changed. I just disagree about the argument, like in general. I don't
Like
the if
like the premise
it's
here.
yeah with the premises like specifically I don't think like at least the premise that oh yeah well if it's morally justified to kill one person to save two, then like abortion's morally justified. I don't grant like most of the premises. I don't grant that it's like morally justified to kill one person to save two. And also in the context of abortion, I'm pretty sure like the statistics you laid out, like you say you
Mm-hmm.
grant that like the fetus and like a regular sentient baby are like morally equivalent, yeah?
Roughly is roughly equally valuable. I think like fully grown adult humans are more valuable, but just for the sake of the debate, I just grant they're like roughly equally valuable.
And the motivation as to why like the motivation as to why abortion is okay is because through having an abortion through having an abortion then consequently increases the likelihood of more people being born.
Yeah.
So like do you extend that sort of principle to say like if I were had the capability to like end the life of one person but that increased the likelihood of more people being born in future, you'd say it's morally justified for me to end the life of that person or
As in like if I killed one person, it would allow for two people, or it would allow for two lives to come about.
yeah.
Yeah, I think that follows from the reductionist account. That's why I ran it. But I'm not a reductionist. I actually don't agree with that.
Wait, what do you mean like it follows from the
Not a
reductionist
reductionist,
account?
a deprivationist account. Sorry, not a reductionist, a deprivationist account.
Yeah, okay, so you don't think that follows from it because
No, I think it does follow from a deprivationist account. I don't think it follows under my view. I don't even accept that.
what's your view?
Of harm. I've told you this before. What's it called? I'm a reductionist about harm. I take harm to be like super minimal.
To be what? Like maybe Shamaik, but like you keep like
I
getting
said
really
I take
bad.
harm to be. I said I take harm to be super minimal.
Super minimal in what sense that like it's only actualized by like a specific property in like all cases.
Yeah,
And what's the property?
you can understand it as like a lowering of someone's prudential value.
A lowering of someone's prudential value. And by prudential value, what's that index to?
Do you mean what prudential value means?
Yeah, like specifically what does it mean for something to have prudential value?
Welfare. It
Well,
means you have welfare.
yeah, like that doesn't really clarify anything to me. Like, are there any sort of like conditions needed for some for like say
Oh, are you just asking like what types of things I value?
no specifically what sort of things would need to be robbed from somebody for you to decrease their welfare?
Oh, well, I'm an objective list theorist. I told you this before. So
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think
yeah.
you need to. Yeah, I think you need to lower, or I think you need to like reach their consent. You need to like I don't know, like you need to like fucking physically hurt them, like lower their health. You can make them sad. You can do a bunch of shit. Just if it seems like it would impact their quality of life in a negative sense, I'd probably understand it to be harm.
So like what's it called? If something say were to deprive you of like future goods, you would also take that at least in some cases to be a reduction of your welfare.
Yeah, in some cases.
Okay. Yeah, it just sounds like what's it called a pluralist view, but with less steps. But I mean, I guess that's fine. So the reason why you'd say that there's a distinction between the two is specifically because you think that like what's the relevant distinction?
A relevant distinction between
between it being morally, or like what's the symmetry breaker between you saying that's morally justified to end the life of one, or end the life of like one fetus to bring about two, but it's not morally justified to end the life of like one person to bring about two.
Oh, well, okay, so this is gonna get into like nerdy shit. So my view, I'm not an aggregationist. I don't judge it just based off of numbers. I do this thing called weighing up reasons. If you ever look into like Rossian pluralism, you'd understand it, but I'm not sure you have.
Pluralist deontology. Yeah. Is it W.D. Ross? Is it like W.D. Ross? Is that it?
Yeah, I think it was Ross.
Yeah, I've looked into his view. Just lay it out for me.
So Ross. Okay, so I'm not a Rossian pluralist, but it's kind of the same thing. So you kind of like you have this thing where you kind of weigh up reasons with morals. You don't really you're not really like doing any judgment, like fucking doing numbers or whatever, considering the types of duties you have or whatever. You don't do that. You just kind of weigh up like what types of things are relevant, at least to me, for morals. And then given that, you kind of see the weight of those reasons. And then whichever one, good or bad, is favored in the end by the reasons. And
so wait, what sort of, hold on. Let me write this down. So you say what sort of things are relevant whenever you're speaking of morality?
Mm-hmm. You're asking me like for a comprehensive list, or
no. So like whenever you're talking about like reasons, you're saying all sorts of things are relevant in terms of morality, and then saying that what's it called? You then compare these sort of reasons and how like strictly they apply to the case you're given.
Well, specifically, the reasons are about the case you're giving, like how they apply to them. But yeah.
Sure. Okay, give me a second. Compare the purpose of morality. Wait, so you compare the purpose of morality and then see what sort of reasons would apply compared to the case you're given. Is that it?
No, it's not that you apply the reasons. It's that
the reasons are about the thing. Yeah. Okay. Wait. So repeat the entire thing about like reasons comparisons. I don't want to strong that before I give my response.
Look at my new cases here. That's it. But yeah, basically, you kind of like with weighing up reasons. You kind of look at the case, and then you think about the types of moral reasons you have, right, with regard to the case. And so I can actually give a few examples, so maybe it makes more sense this time. You kind of like see maybe like one person has their welfare lowered, but also this other person, I don't know, they're having some right violated. And then you kind of look at other things like, I don't know, generally whenever I see this, it seems to be a bad outcome or something, or, stuff like that. You kind of go through these types of reasons you have to believe the thing's bad or the thing's good. And through that, you kind of like think about how like heavy the reasons are, quote unquote, with respect to the case. And then once you've done that, you kind of like see which side it favors, good or bad, and then you choose the one on which the reasons are heavier.
Is which side? Yeah, okay. I think I've gotten all of that down. So specifically, what sort of reasons would you say weigh in towards saying that it would be immoral in this case, but it's not immoral in the other case? Or in the case of like having an abortion?
So there's one big thing. In the fetus case, there's a strong reason in favor, or like there's a strong reason in favor of the second over the first. That being, the fetus doesn't have actualized value.
Right? Doesn't have actualized value. What do you mean?
As in like, there's like these things about like a fully grown human, like I don't know, them having a sentient experience, them having connections to other people, them having like, I don't know, them having like these types of memories, them having a connection to their future, all these things.
I think, wait, hold on. I don't grant that fetuses don't have a connection to their future, for one. But two, I think fetuses do have actualized value, because I think the property of, say, having like, a property of having like a future like ours, or a future of valuable experiences, that's already an actualized trait which they have, right? Which would give them like value.
Holy shit. Okay. Do you think flow? So first of all, you just didn't track what I said. What I said prior was that there's a bunch of things that the fetus
Mm-hmm.
doesn't have that the fully grown adult human does that I value.
Yeah, no.
Right.
The
So
issue
I'm
is
not
I don't
saying like
think they weigh in heavily in
sorry,
terms of moral
Shinra.
consideration.
I was in the middle of my sentence. Shinra, I
Go
was in the
ahead.
middle of my sentence.
My bad.
So um, So there's a bunch of things that are not in the fetus that are in the human, or like in the fully grown adult human, that I do value. And aside from that, of course, I understand. Like, yeah, I agree. The fetus is valuable, right? I agree. There's things in the fetus I value. I'm not sure I'd word it as a future like ours because that gets into like a bunch of bullshit. But like, obviously, there's something about the fetus that I value. But just the point is, I have more reasons in favor of valuing the adult human than I do in favor of valuing the fetus.
Wait, repeat what you said. Sorry, I was looking at chat. So you have more
Yeah.
reasons like to value the fetus in comparison to, or more reason to value the human in comparison to value the fetus.
Yeah.
I mean, well, one, like, there's two things actually. So, one, I don't think specifically that simply having more things which you have reasons to value, right, in comparison to like another case, it makes it such that like you'd be okay to kill one or in comparison to the other, unless it's like, say, a very significant reason. So you can imagine a case of like an unconscious person or a comatose person in comparison to somebody who is sentient. There's more things which I probably value within the sentient person, such as like the capability of rational thought, right? The fact that they are sentient, say for example, right? But I wouldn't say that if you were to like what's it called? I wouldn't say that it's wrong, or like even in one case, if I said it's wrong for me to like take the life of this comatose person, or if it's wrong for me to take the life of this sentient person, right? I would also say that still applies to the like comatose person, because even though I have more things in which I value, I have like greater number of reasons to value this thing, right? I don't think these sort of reasons are extremely significant, such that like there would be some form of like a moral differentiation that I'm making between the two. So at least, for the very least, I think I'd need some form of motivation specifically as to why I'd grant that the sort of reasons which are present within the like sentient person, right, actually weigh up such like weigh up so little in comparison, or weigh up so much, I should say, such that like it's morally justified in one case but not the other.
First of all, it's fucking trivial that you make a moral distinction between the two because you agree you have more reasons to value one over and over another.
That's
Even if
what
it's
I was
trivial, fucking
saying.
I'm done there. So, freaking obviously they're morally distinct. But aside from that, you kind of move over here, and I'm kind of unsure why I would say that stuff like me having connections to others, me having what the hell is going on in this guy's mind? Jesus. But I'm kind of unsure. I would say stuff like me having connections to others, me having a conscious experience, as in having a mind, me having a psychological a connection to the future, me having like a bunch of things that I'm attached to. I'm kind of unsure why all these things. Also, me having like a fucking stake in life already, because like fetuses, they don't really have a stake in life because all they're really benefiting from is like their mom, right?
I'm
But
unclear
like
what you
if
mean
you're
by stake in life, by the way.
okay, okay, so a stake is like say I can just define what sense, please. So let's say there's like this company that's in your city, right? And
Do you just mean they have
this
interest towards
company
it? Is that what you're saying? Do you just mean they have interest towards it? Like, or interest
um
towards staying alive?
you can kind of understand it like that, but you can also understand it like um say that I'll explain it. So say there's like this company in your city, and this company they're like deciding whether they want to make this like massive nuclear power plant, and then like fucking like drain all the waste from the nuclear power plant like into your neighborhood, right?
Yep.
Like into like a river in your neighborhood. Um, well, you have a stake in that decision because that would impact you, right? And all the other people that are in your neighborhood, like that decision would impact them, right? And that's what it means to have a stake. It means like the kinds of decisions or oh, fuck. The kinds of decisions or the kinds of things that like other people do or someone who's like making decisions do, they impact you, and that's what it means to hold a stake.
Yeah, I mean,
And
okay, under that sort of definition, like trivially, a fetus would hold like a stake to life in the sense that the sort of actions in which is done in the case of abortion, right? If it were to
Jesus.
end the hold on, if it were to end the life of like the fetus, right? Trivially, it would affect it. So unless you mean something like that specifically indexed to desires, right? Which I'm pretty sure that was what you were going for. Then it would have a stake in life. And two, in the cases like sure, I grant that there is a moral distinction, right? In the sense that maybe you could say that one of them trivially has you have like more reasons to value it. But whenever I say that there is a moral distinction, I'm talking about the sort of thing which would make it morally justified for me to do an action to one thing, but not the other, right? And those sort of moral reasons need to be particularly weighty in order for you to be morally justified in doing like an action to one and not the other, right? Which is why I gave you the comatose patient example. So for the sort of premises within your argument, right, to go through, which is like if it's morally justified to kill one person to save two, right? Or the sort of argument like that you're making for your abortion argument, for that to go through, you need to give me some form of like reason as to why the sort of interest or reasons you have towards valuing this person more, right, or the reasons you have towards valuing this person which aren't present in the fetus are that weighty, right? And they'll need a real like proper argument for it, which I haven't seen. Also, isn't the argument just include like real people? Does the argument literally just say if it's morally justified to like kill one person to save two, then like abortion is morally justified? Like,
Okay, so Shinra, can you repeat back what I fucking said prior?
you were talking about vested interests. Oh no, you're talking about having a stake in life. Sorry.
No, that's not the only thing I said. That was one thing I said.
You should repeat back what you just said, and I just told you what you just said. That was the last thing you said.
Yeah, what I just said was talking about the previous statement I made.
So the first thing you said.
So
Okay.
I'll just explain it to you. So I actually put into question you. I'm not sure why you're trying to do this thing where you like shift the burden because you either didn't hear me or you're like retarded. But you keep asking me this question, like I don't know, like I'm kind of unsure why I would say that having like a stake in life, relevantly, by the way, which is I said they don't really have a stake in life. It's a term of speech, but I also said like they have like psychological connectedness to their future. They have like connections to all these other people, whatever. And then you say, well, I don't think that's relevant. And then I say, I'm kind of unsure why they wouldn't be relevant. And to be clear, what that's doing there, in case you're like unaware of the social cues surrounding this scenario, that's me asking you like for a reason for that. And then what you do in the response is you get to restate you need relevant things. And then you saying you need relevant things is just identical to asking me to prove that they're relevant. Well, I'm just not gonna engage with a burden shift. I need to fucking answer my question.
Hold on. Okay. So, yeah, are you done? Okay. So if the distinction, what'd you say?
I said usually when people stop speaking.
I thought you were lagging because you were lagging before. But what's it called? Specifically, your argument is positing that it would be morally justified to do it in the case of a fetus, but not in the case of a person, right? Or which is why I gave you the analogy at the start. And then you're saying that the reason why it's not okay to do in the case of the person is because these traits, and as you said before, you're doing things called like, oh, you're weighing the reasons, right? And then you were trying to say that, okay, well, we see how heavy these reasons are, and whether or not they would actually play a factor into whether or not we're determining whether or not an action is like right or wrong. So you were invoking that these sort of reasons specifically would be weighty enough such that there's a more distinction between the two. I haven't made a claim on whether or not they're relevant or not, right? Specifically, I'm just asking you for a motivating reason as to why these sort of properties are relevant. And if these sort of properties aren't relevant in terms of weighing up like whether or not it'd be morally justified in one case but not the other, then I'm simply just not convinced as to why, or like there would be no basis on which your argument can stand on. There's no grounds for your argument to stand on, especially when you're the one who's positing the argument, also the one positing the distinction, right? And if you're the one who's positing the distinction, and as I stated, laid down the analogy earlier, the distinction needs to also be relevant, right? Then again, it would be required in your argument for the reason to be relevant. Now, I know you said, oh, well, I don't see a reason why they wouldn't be relevant. I don't see a reason why they would be, right? I'm completely agnostic on whether or not they would be. And if we want to sit here and continue playing agnostic, then you'd also have to grant that you're also agnostic on abortion too, right? At least for those specific reasons. For those
Let's
specific
switch here.
reasons, yes, you would be. By the way,
Jesus Christ. Okay, so Shinra, do you remember the question you asked me initially?
the
Do you remember
question I
what it
asked you was
was?
why they're relevant. By the way, oh no,
Nope.
specifically, no. The
So,
question was what these reasons are.
nope, wrong. Okay, so the question you asked
Yes,
me
it was. By the way,
initially, which is why we got into the reasons talk, was you asked me, do you think it would be okay to kill a fully grown adult human so that 2 fetuses are born? And I
that's just
said,
another
no.
question I asked you. Like, hello.
That's the original. That's the initial question I asked you. So,
No, I was the one who asked
where
the
did
question.
Paula go? Paula died, lol.
Who?
But anyways, what's it called? So I'll just explain to you. So the reason we got where we are right now is because I gave the response. Well, the fetus has like these. The fetus doesn't have these actualized traits that the fully grown adult human has, and so I wouldn't do it, right? And so, given that's true, well, I actually don't need to. I actually don't need to give a response to this question, to like this line of questioning, because well, if I can provide some symmetry breaker, which on my view is sufficient, well, then I don't need to concede that my argument doesn't follow or something. That's obviously not fucking true. I'm kind of unsure what you're even trying to say here. But irregardless, right? Like the point is, you are still attempting to birded flip, right? I'm not going to let you do this bullshit where you like gibberate your way out of defending a burden, because I understand on ethics you're like really, really bad at actually taking an affirmative position, and so you don't want to be on the back foot. But I'm not going to let you get away from this. You made a claim. We all heard you make a fucking claim, and so I need you to answer the question that I asked you, and I need you to actually fulfill the verdict.
Yeah, so if I give you 2 cases and then you tell me that okay, well, this is the symmetry breaker. Trivially, it's also presupposed that the symmetry breaker has to be relevant, right? Hence why I gave you the another analogy in which it's a coma patient, somebody who is sentient. I wouldn't think it's like morally justified for you to end one's life to bring about 2, even though there is a difference between the 2, simply because the difference is irrelevant. So if you're providing it as a symmetry breaker between the fetus and an adult, right, and then that's also the justification as to why it's okay to do it to the fetus but not to the adult, you'd also need to say that these sort of differences between the 2 are morally relevant, and also morally relevant to such an extent in which it would be justifiable to do to these one set of people, right, or these one set of entities in comparison to the other. So it is actually a burden, right? But even if you want to say like it is my burden, which I don't even think it is, like I still, in fact, it's actually incomprehensible to me why that would even be my burden in the first place, right? Especially since you're the one who provided this trait as a symmetry breaker. And then when I ask you, okay, why is this trait a relevant symmetry breaker, right, or why this trait possesses enough more value such that it would be like the symmetry would be broken in that manner, you haven't been able to give me an explanation. But if you think that it was my burden, we can just conclude now, like, and then if I didn't prove the claim, then it's just my loss or something. I don't really care.
Yeah, anyways, so first of all, I'm not going to let you get out of this. So, Shinra, the point you made prior was that, oh, well, given you're agnostic on this, which given I'm fucking not, I gave a reason as to why I believe that it's not okay to kill a fully grown adult human, but 2 people are born. I gave fucking reason for that. But aside from that, Shinra, do you think
You like that, by the
you
way?
saying
You like that?
I paused.
No.
Shinra,
Like
Jesus
you like that when you were like speaking.
Okay, so you say, well, if you're agnostic on this, you have to be agnostic on this. Keep in mind, I'm not agnostic on the first one, so irregardless, that's fine. Or irregardless, it doesn't matter. You kind of say this, but then I like show you under my view, there's reasons for both. What you're doing there is you're saying, well, if you, like your view internally accepts this, then it has to accept this. And I give you reasons why, on my view, internally, I accept one but not the other. Then obviously I'm remaining consistent, and I can give the answer to both that I actually give. So now, what I'm going to ask you is, under my view, have I sufficiently answered the question?
Okay. If under the conditions and criteria you laid out before, then I don't think so, and I'll explain why. So, one specifically, you started off by saying, right, Mosoko, why did you? I gave you I gave you like a reductio, and the reductio was specifically the coma patient, right? Or would it be okay to do this to actual people? Then your response was, oh well, there's these reasons which apply to this one, right? And these are the sort of reasons why it's wrong to do it to a person. And it's like, okay, well, that's fine, right? That can like you can say that these sort of reasons as to why it's wrong to do it to a person, or whatever you want. And I can also just apply conversely that there are certain sort of reasons as to why it would be wrong to do that to a fetus. Alright, but however, the sort of distinction here would be you need to give me a reason as to why these sort of reasons as to why it's wrong to do that to a person or do that to a sentient person. Alright, are so much so such that it is actually or it creates a more distinction in the sense that it'd be morally unjustified to do it to the person, but not the fetus. Right? In the case of the fetus, you could say hold on. In the case of the fetus, you could say that it is wrong for me to end the life of one to save the other, right? Or to end the life of one to bring about two more prima facie, simply because the fetus possesses a feature like ours. Any sort of reason like that, right? And then you could say that it's also wrong to do that to a person, right? Not only because they also do like consequently possess a feature like ours, but also because of these other traits that they have, right? But now, since they both already share the same sort of property, and the human has other properties, all I'd ask you is, okay, why are all these other properties morally relevant, such that it would, if they didn't have those properties, it would be morally acceptable? And you haven't been able to give me a reason, right? Under your own view, under your own view, when you compare reasons, you also say you compare the significance of those reasons, right? And how heavily they weigh onto the like whether or not it's good or bad. And now I'm asking you, why is it the case that they weigh on heavily, which you haven't been able to answer me?
Yeah, sure. So since you're like never gonna get off this point, you're not like we're never gonna get past this burden point. I'll just give you a few thought experiments, and then we can see if you actually agree. So, Shinra, do you think if I kill someone who has no psychological connectedness to their future, and then I kill someone who has psychological connectedness to their future, which one do you believe is worse?
Which one do I believe is worse? I think it's worse to kill the person who has a psychological connectedness to the future, sure.
Whoa, that's crazy. And now let's say I kill someone who has connections to other people, and then I kill someone who has no connections to other people. Which one do you think is worse?
Killing the one with connection to other people. This is irrelevant, by the way. This entirely irrelevant.
Whoa, that's crazy. So then let's move on. Let's say I kill something with a mind, and then I kill something without a mind. Which one is worse?
Killing the thing with a mind. Again, this is still irrelevant.
Whoa. So first of all, obviously they're fucking morally relevant. I don't know why the fuck you said.
That's what I said.
But that is what you said. You said morally. Yeah, you said you need me to prove why they're morally relevant.
No.
They're morally relevant.
That's not what I said either.
I'm down there. So, you asked me to prove why they're morally relevant and why they're morally relevant to such an extent that it would change the outcome. Or I think you said like relevantly morally relevant.
That is what I said either.
Everyone fucking heard it.
I'm sure, bro. Anyways, so what I said specifically was, can you give me a reason such that if these people didn't have these specific sort of properties, it would be morally justified for the action to take place? Now, when you tell me, oh, is it wrong for me to kill somebody with no connections to people, or is it worse to kill someone with no connections to people compared to somebody who does have connections to people? Obviously, you can grant that one is worse, but both of them are wrong, right? I'm asking you for the sort of property which that if they didn't, hold on, stop the fake laugh, right? I'm asking you for the sort of property which, if one of them didn't have it, right, in comparison to another, that if they lost the sort of property, it would no longer be wrong. And you haven't been able to give me that sort of property. And you haven't been able to give me a motivation as to why that sort of property exists. Do you want to conclude?
So is that So is that the claim? Okay, so you kind of do this thing, like you have this problem where
I'm sure.
You always kind of default to the like, oh well, it's wrong though stance, right? Like, keep in mind this is not a good way to go about fucking ethics. No even like current day ontologists will use fucking ethics that way. But
sure, bro.
Irregardless, right? My view, actually, I can agree there's wrongness in the action. I'm kind of unsure why you do this bullshit where you're like, oh well, it's wrong. Or in our previous debate, you said something like, oh well, it's wrong just to a lesser degree, or that's the better of two evils, or whatever.
That's what I said.
Shinra, that is verbatim what you said the previous.
I'm sure, bro. Continue.
But irregardless, the point is, I'm very, very fucking unsure here why I would accept specifically that My burden, one, is to prove that the action is good, because I think actions can be permissible without being good. That's kind of like fucking you threw in there. But irregardless, then we kind of move on. We kind of shimmy on over, meander on over to the secondary point. I'm kind of unsure why you're kind of harping on this point, which is like, oh well, I'm actually not convinced that there's this thing that makes one more valuable than the other. You agree?
That's what I
At
said.
least makes it more valuable. Jesus Christ! Why does this guy keep doing this? It's
Well,
actually so fucking annoying.
you keep saying things I didn't say. Like that's what I said. Like
Can a moderator please mute the retard? Jesus Christ. But you keep saying like these like random quips and these random things in your speech, and then I'm not sure if you have like a memory disorder. I'm not sure if you're like you're not remembering it. You're like forgetting it as you say it. Maybe like your brain space is too small. Like every time the fourth word comes out, you forget the first three. I don't know, but the problem is you're like obviously fucking wrong here. I'm like so unsure. You're like misinterpreting my view, and in misinterpreting my view, you kind of like fucking pump your own view into mine, and then you forget what your own fucking view says.
I'm sure, bro.
This is so fucking embarrassing. So first of all,
For sure, bro.
I'm gonna need you to answer the two questions I asked you prior. The two questions being, keep in mind, one, why am I committed to the view that it's good? It could just be that it's permissible, and two, why am I committed to the view that something being bad makes it impermissible?
Okay, are you done? Yeah. First of all, shush, lad. But first of all, I need to get your sort of definition on what you mean by permissible. Usually, whenever I say an action is morally permissible, I mean either A, right, it is morally good, or B, is like amoral, right? Like obviously, I'd say that's morally permissible for you to like drink a cup of water or something, right? Like I think it's either like good or amoral. Now, if you say that specifically, you don't need to grant that the action is good. You can just say it's morally permissible. Maybe you're using some idiosyncratic usage of morally permissible. Don't know why you'd be doing that, but again, I just needed to account for it. And two, the second question also just got lost in the sauce, especially when you keep trying to like fake laugh and mock my voice. It doesn't really work really well, especially with the simple rhetorical jab that you copy from her. But it's fine. I just need to get an answer to the first question, and then we can move on to whatever relevant point that you want to bring up afterwards.
So first of all, I didn't want your voice to be retarded. Second of all,
Yes, you did.
I understand permissibility to be like, okay, so there's a few conditions under which something is morally permissible. So first of all, yeah, if it's good or if it's amoral, but also given the action, like say, like there's this action you can choose, and it's within like a dichotomy between two actions, right? Say like I could either kill one person to stop the Holocaust, or I could allow the Holocaust to happen. Well, I understand killing one person to still be wrong, and that's a reason in favor of not doing the action, right? And I understand that reason to be negative, and so with respect to that reason, particularly, given like all else equal, with respect to that reason, the action would be bad, right? And so I can agree the action on its own is bad, but all things considered, the action is permissible because I'm stopping the fucking Holocaust, right? And with respect to that, I can understand there's sometimes these types of things which are permissible, which can be bad on themselves, or even let's give an example where both actions are bad, right? So let's say I could either rape, I could rape like a fucking corpse, or I could rape like a woman, or I could rape like a 13-year-old child. Obviously, I'm gonna rape the fucking corpse, right? Even though I think raping corpses is bad, I'm gonna rape the fucking corpse. Those are examples where both actions are bad, but one is permissible due to the context of the scenario, right? So that's examples in which bad things can be permissible. And before you say some bullshit like, that's idiosyncratic here. Well, obviously it's not fucking idiosyncratic because that's how any consequentialist ever uses the word, bro. Obviously it's not fucking idiosyncratic because you think every consequentialist uses an idiosyncratic usage of the term permissible.
Well, one, I'd need some empirics on how the consequentialists use the words like permissible. So, whenever you say like, oh, well, it's not idiosyncratic because lots of people use the word. Well, I just need some justification as to why lots of people use the word that way, for one. And then two, again, you gave the analogy of like essaying a corpse, or like essaying like a 3-year-old, and then you said that, well, one would be permissible, the other one wouldn't be. I don't grant that. Like, I think that in these sort of cases, you can just grandstand that both of these options are impermissible, right? And also, both of these options are like morally wrong. And it seems as if I ask the average person, is it permissible? Is it morally permissible to like molest a corpse? Or like if you the other option was to like molest a kid, right? The answer would be neither are actually morally permissible. So I don't actually understand where you're going with this, right? And I think at least it depends on how you understand consequentialism. If you mean by consequentialism an action is morally justified or morally good, if and only if it leads to like better consequences, right? Then obviously they grant that the action isn't just morally permissible, but it's morally permissible because it's morally good, and they just understand morally permissible and morally good to mean the same things, being that it leads to better consequences. At least from the people who I've spoken to. Now, whether or not you have some like esoteric consequentialist knowledge through speaking with synth and bathing in the blood, right? Like I don't understand like where you're getting these empirics from, for one, and then two, like yeah, that's actually the specific part of like the permissibility stuff that I disagree with. Now I think obviously in some cases you can say that like say for example, like if I put you in a room and say grape your mom or grape your dad, like one of these is probably worse, right? But that doesn't matter because everyone would say that it's impermissible either way. Like I'm forcing you to do something that's impermissible. Like regardless, that would be what most people say. I don't see any sort of reason or motivation why anyone would grant your semantics. But even under your idiosyncratic semantics, I don't understand why it would be permissible under that view. Like why would it be permissible to like say end the life of this fetus in comparison to like forcing the woman to hold the pregnancy to term?
Yeah, so I'm going to do the bad faith thing that you did prior. So I'm going to need empirics on that most people would agree with you on that. But irregardless, for the first thing, I don't even need fucking empirics from that. It's derivable from the fucking view. So the view understands that an action's like the way an action imparts obligations or an action is right or wrong is purely with respect to its consequences. Now, a consequentialist can understand sometimes there's cases in which an action or like both options for an action are wrong. Like, I don't know, as I said like before, like raping a corpse or raping a 13-year-old. Well, obviously the consequentialist would favor raping a corpse, but they think raping corpses is bad. Right? And that's just derivable from the fucking view. I don't need empirics on that or something. That's just derivable. That's how the fucking view works. You're retarded if you question that. But yeah, I'll fucking pass the torch over to you or kick the ball over to you. I'm going to need empirics for the second claim you made. That being that most people, they don't use permissible that way. And most people, given they were asked the types of questions that I had, and keep in mind, I'm going to stipulate upon deliberation, because you do this thing where you kind of take these like immediate intuitions that people have, like fucking gospel, but then if you ask those people to like think about it for more than like 2 seconds, they'd probably agree with me. And before you ask me to prove that, I actually have a source for it. But irregardless, I'm going to need proof for the first claim, and then maybe if you want to be like bad faith again and ask for empirics, I can give empirics for the claim that I made.
Yeah, so one specifically, the sort of claim you made initially was that it's entailed from the view. And it's entailed from the view because consequentialists typically understand good or bad to be indexed to whether or not it leads to better or worse consequences. But sometimes they can agree that in both of these consequences, or both of these actions can be wrong or be impermissible. That's not true. Right, and I don't grant that that's true. I think like okay, unless you think that somebody can do a good action or a good action can be morally impermissible, right? If there's two options that you're forced to pick, one of these options has worse consequences, the other one has better consequences, then it would be entailed by it having worse consequences that it is bad, and the other one or the other action would be good. Through the definition you provided earlier, if good and bad is indexed to consequences, both of these options have different consequences. One is more negative than the other. Then not only would you be good, right, or it would be good under their semantics to do one of these actions, right, and permissible would be indexed to whether or not it is good or not. Now, whether or not you say that the majority, when you say the majority of consequentialists, right, speak like this or have these semantics, right, that's the claim I need empirics on. You say that, okay, quote unquote, it's bad faith, right, for me to ask that, when I don't think it is bad faith, especially when the justification you have is that it's entailed by the view, but the view doesn't entail that, especially on the way you described it just now. But also, I didn't make a claim about generally how most people use it independent of my own knowledge. Right? I made the claim based off of people I've spoken to, right, and based off of my own experiences, right. And if that's true, then I don't need any sort of empirics or studies for that specifically, right. I can, because the sort of claim is made off of my own knowledge. And then the third thing is you said that you need to prove that these people have these intuitions after deliberation. Look, right. one, I'm unclear specifically why, like the second claim you made, why people's intuitions favor your view upon deliberation, for one. And then two, I'm also unclear why, like, whenever people are reporting these sorts of intuitions, they haven't already deliberated, right? You're trying to make this claim that whenever people have these intuitions, and whenever they report these intuitions, they haven't already deliberated. There's no basis for that, no empirics for it at all. But send me this source supposedly which you have, please, thank you.
Yeah, so before I do that, for the first claim, you're fucking retarded. The definition I gave was the way it imparts obligations, or the way that it, the way that it understands good and bad. Now, the way I understand it is they would say this action is good, but they would say this action imparts an obligation. And presumably you would agree, if something imparts an obligation, then it's permissible. Presumably you don't think there's like types of moral obligations that are impermissible. It'd be fucking retarded. And so you saying like even under your definition it's inconsistent, you're a retard. You're fucking wrong. No, under my definition it's not inconsistent because they understand and I understand as a consequentialist that it imparts an obligation. Now you may not understand, so I'll lay it out for you really, really clearly.
Wait, repeat what you said?
The way,
like literally the first an hour, like you started bugging out from it. Maybe it's because of my Wi-Fi.
Yeah, I got you, buddy. So the way I understand consequentialism is they understand that the view imparts obligations or understands good and bad. Or you can kind of understand it as a conjunction or a disjunction. We understand it as a disjunction. But it can impart obligations. Like, let's say I have an obligation to, rape a dead body or rape a corpse because, it stops me from raping a 13-year-old. Now, they would say that this action is bad, but they would say there's an obligation for it. And presumably, you agree, that if you're obligated to do something, morally speaking, then it's permissible. Now, the claim you made specifically, it's inconsistent with my definition. Well, it's fucking not, because it's a part of the imparting obligation thing. That was what I was talking about. Right? I think there's an obligation imparted, but I'm not quite sure that it's a good action. I actually think it's a bad action. At least with respect to the action itself. Like, I have reasons in favor of it being bad. But irregardless, right? For the second claim, I can give you the empirics real quick. It's just the same thing. It's just the same fucking study that Sense uses.
I don't have the study Sense uses, but I'll just respond to the first thing. I just need to understand. When they say important obligation, what are the sort of conditions needed for an obligation to arise?
What's up?
What are the sort of conditions needed under a consequentialist view for an obligation to arise?
The consequences being better than the alternative.
And what does it mean for an action to be good under the view?
For the action to promote better, for the action to promote good consequences.
Good consequence. Okay, so wait, and so oh my god, their definitions of obligations and the definitions of good are like literally identical, right? Especially if you see yes they are, right? If an action is good, if you are obligated to do an action, and for you to be obligated to do an action, what that means is it leads to better consequences. And for you to be obligated and like for an action to be good, that also means that it leads to better consequences. That therefore means wait, hold on, okay. Redefine what an obligation is under their view.
Obligation is that the consequences of the actions, or they have like the better consequences.
Wait, give me a second. I'm writing it down. Give me a second. They have better consequences?
Yeah, for the action have better consequences. You're going to add like then alternatives in there.
And what does it mean for an action to be good?
For an action to have good consequences.
The action to have good consequences. Well, it literally has the word good within the definition of it. Like, it doesn't tell you anything.
Have you ever heard of use? Yeah, it's just being mentioned. It's not being used.
Okay, wait. When you say good consequences, what does that mean?
You can understand it as positive consequences if you want, even though it's just a synonym of good.
Positive consequences. And hold on. Okay. I'm confused how these aren't identical. If you say something has better consequences in comparison to the other, hold on. That would mean that it has some like positive consequences, right? In comparison to the other one, in comparison to the other option, such that one is good and the other one isn't. Like I'm confused how you'd say that one of these is like not dissimilar to the other. Like, what's the
because
distinction
one
here?
is because one is a comparative value judgment, one is a non-comparative value judgment. Retard.
One is what?
One is a comparative value judgment, one is a non-comparative value judgment. Retard.
Okay, and which one specifically? You said that the definition of good would be a non-comparative value judgment. Yes.
Yeah.
Wait, okay, so for something, an action to be good, it means that it has positive consequences. And for an action to be better,
Yeah.
that means that, wait, hold on, that means that it has more positive consequences in comparison to the other. I think, trivially, in almost every single relevant sense, both of those two things are identical, right? If you say that, like, you are, wait, hold on, hold on. If you say that an action is good in comparison to, like, say, a bad action, all that would mean specifically, under any consequentialist, you say, for example, the trolley problem, where, like, they say, okay, would you rather like end the life of one person or end the life of five? Somebody like it, most consequentialists to say that it's good for you to end the life of to end the life of one person compared to end the life of five. The reason being is because it leads to worse consequences if you don't do the action. So trivially, it is comparative in comparison to like the all of the other outcomes, right? Whereas the other, like other people say that, okay, well, you don't need to compare the sort of action to the outcomes it makes, right, for it to be good, right? That would be any sort of deontic view. So I don't understand how like the good definition isn't comparative.
Jesus Christ. Okay.
You
So
don't believe in God, bro.
the good definition can apply even in cases in which there's no other options, right? And so let's just kind of suppose, like there's this world where it's not even possible that I do another action, right? It's like literally impossible. But I have the option to or I have the option, or I guess I'm kind of pushed, I guess by the kinds of forces that are making me. I'm pushed to like give a kid a piece of candy, right? Now the utilitarian would say this is good, even though there's nothing to fucking compare it to, right? It's a non-comparative judgment. It's a value judgment, right? Now a comparative value judgment, if you're like very, very clearly not well educated on this, a comparative value judgment requires other cases, right? To a utilitarian, obligations are not imparted unless you're able to compare it to other things, right? So you can kind of understand it as like, I don't have an obligation to not kill people, given I like don't have the option to, or I don't have the option to not kill people, right? You can kind of understand this. You can understand that this like faux auto implies can, right? So, I can only have an obligation for something. It's only the case that I ought to do something, just in case I have the option to not do it. And so I'm kind of unsure, like how you think the. Okay, I'm going to ask you. Do you think, under my view, good and obligation? It's just like. Do you think it's like analytically true? For any case that I have good, I have an obligation.
That's why I'm investigating your semantics. So give me a second. My mother's calling me.
Oh, there it goes. Let's kind of get a mid-game interview here. I mean, can anyone make? Okay.
So hold on.
So.
On your view specifically, I just want to get this clear. So, on your view, whenever you say that an action is obligatory, it's in comparison to any of the other options. And whenever you say an action is good, that you take it that just to mean that like an action is it leads to better consequences.
The other way around, but yeah.
So okay, wait, give me a second. So an action is good if and only if it has better consequences, or an action is obligatory. Sorry, and an action is good. It means for the action to have good consequences. And by good consequences, you mean just consequences which lead to better, or do you just mean actions which lead to better consequences? Yes.
To positive outcomes.
Positive outcomes. Sure, that's fine. My question is specifically that okay, your claim is that in one of these cases, like the human case, that would be not morally obligatory for me to do the action because of these reasons, and then it would be morally obligatory for me to do this action in the other case because they do not possess these sort of like reasons that you offer as a distinction between the two.
They don't possess these kinds of actual properties that I value.
That you value, and then you also, and specifically as you said earlier on within the conversation, you take it that whenever you're speaking in terms of like more deliberation, you're weighing in specifically one the significance, right? These sorts of reasons, or whether or not these reasons apply to the case, and the significance they have onto the case, and like deliberating whether or not they're good or bad.
Well, as I said, it's not how they apply to the case. It's like they're like within the case, but yeah, whether like they weigh for or against the action. Yeah.
Yeah, what and depending on how significantly they weigh for or against the action, then it determines if it's obligatory or not.
Well, that's with respect to it being compared to something else, but yeah, given like after I weigh up the reasons, like I come to the conclusion, like the reasons favor, yeah, like doing the action or not doing the action contextually, then you.
Okay, yeah, sure. So, like, literally, is this if the sort of claim you make is just that there's some property which humans have, which counts in favor of not like doing this action to them, which defeatist doesn't have these sort of properties, right? Even though you grant that the sort of moral value they have is roughly equivalent, then it's either like you need to like give some explanation as to how they can be morally equivalent while also lacking these sort of key sort of qualities. Wait, hold on. These key sort of qualities which you think would be needed for you to have in order for me to say not brutally take your life, right, in order to create more people. And B, like I think the sort of properties that are needed in this sort of in the case of like the fetus would just be kind of obvious, right? You'd be robbing the fetus of all of these future goods, right, which you would have had otherwise. And those sort of reasons I think will count in favor of not taking its life simply because you can maximize or simply because you can create more of that those sorts of goods, right, in the case of another entity. I just think the fetus generally just has like or actually you could just respond to that first. Oh no, I
Okay,
lost
so
that blog
first of all,
post.
do you think like future properties are equally as valuable to the actualized version of those future properties?
It depends, like specifically to the extent of like what these future properties are. Like I'd say, like probably if some fetus is going to gain like gonna have like a perfect life in future, but it doesn't have a perfect life now. It'd probably be more valuable than somebody who's gonna have like who is currently having like an absolutely horrible life.
That's not the question I asked you. So
Yeah,
let's
I
say
said it depends the scenario on the scenario. That's like a clear answer.
no. Okay, so the question I asked you was: say we have like the same thing, like the same trait, the same property, right? And one thing has it as like potential in the future, and one thing has it actually. Which one do you think is more valuable?
It depends to the extent in which they have the property. I think
Okay.
Yeah, I think the sort of like also cause specifically whenever I say future, I mean the sort of like future positive experiences that they're going to experience otherwise, or if this action did not occur. And I think like also called it depends on not only the extent in which the action or in which these sort of goods will be experienced, right? That also depends.
Mm.
And the sort of detriment to other people that are being instantiated if these sort of future goods will be like actualized. So it
Yeah.
depends on a variety of factors, not just whether or not one actually has the property or whether or not one doesn't have the property. I think that's like
Yeah.
too
So,
much of an
yeah.
oversimplification.
Yeah. Okay. So, I guess I used to ask this question. First of all, do you agree? Like, just moving all the way back, since we're like on the subject of fucking flow again. Do you agree, given the deprivationist account, if you don't abort the fetus, like the one fetus, in the initial case, then you're depriving two future fetuses of future life force?
That oh yeah, sure. I'm not like
Yeah,
a
and so you would agree.
yeah, sure. I
You would
think that's
agree you're
also
like really harming them.
what'd you say?
You would agree you're like greatly harming them, right?
Greatly harming them. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't think there's any existing entity with a future like ours. So like I think the sort of extent in which you'd be harming them would be like lesser in which like in comparison to if they're like actively had it. I don't think there's any entity with a future there.
You don't think there's any entity with, let's say like the fucking, let's say we're like in a determinist world, right? Where all the like fucking things that play out are like guaranteed to play out. And so like the things that constitute that, and those like two future fetuses are just kind of on trajectory to, are just kind of like on trajectory to be those two fetuses. But if you're to like not abort this one fetus, then they like get out of that trajectory and they can't do it anymore.
Yeah, that's fine.
Like
I
that's the
don't think
one
you'd be.
choice.
Yeah, I don't think you'd be worse. I don't think like you'd be doing anything wrong there. Because specifically, I think that for like say if you were to deprive something, there need to be an entity which is like being deprived of something. I think like if you just say that, oh well, these things would exist right otherwise, but you're stopping them from existing, you aren't depriving any existing entity of anything. So I don't know why like you'd be worse in this case. Like,
So do you think something has to be a person to be harmed?
no, that doesn't
Okay.
matter.
What do you think are the conditions? What do you think are the conditions under which something can be harmed?
For something to be harmed, it depends what sense you're talking about. If you mean like the deprivational sense, I think it would at least mean that like there needs to be some connection within the thing. Like say at T1 in comparison, he got a job before me, bro. What's wrong with this guy? Okay, but what's it called? I think at both of these moments, it needs to be like there's some entity at like time point one and some entity at time point two, such that these two things are like essentially in all of the relevant sense the same entity, such that this entity at a later time point would experience less goods in comparison to like if the action did not occur, right? Then you'd be depriving the entity at the current time point, right? But I don't. If there's no entity at the current time point, then I don't think you'd be depriving anything.
If I
Because
like, if I like go outside and cut my grass, and if the grass were to keep growing, it would get more sunlight, and so it'd be, for lack of a better term, in a quote unquote better place. Do you think that I harmed the grass?
if you cut your grass and then like if the action did not occur, then what?
Then it would have like grown more, and it would get more sunlight because it has more surface area. It can photosynthesize better. Do you think that I harmed my grass?
Did that you harm the specific blades of grass that you cut? Yeah.
You think you can harm grass?
I mean, it depends what sort of goods you're considering. If you say like, okay, the good there is being able to photosynthesize or something, then like trivially you'd be like depriving it of something. You'd be depriving it of a good if you consider that to be a good. I don't know. I don't know if that would be like a morally relevant like harm that's going on there.
Okay, Shinra. Okay. So Shinra, what do you want to do? I'll help you out here. I don't want this to be like a gotcha moment. Whatever the deprivation is talking about deprivation. They're not depriving something of literally anything. Usually they have some theory of well-being in the background.
That's what I specified in the middle of like literally I told you if you consider like being able to photosynthesize. I know you literally trying to correct me on something I literally told you. If you consider like these properties, wait, hold on. If you consider these properties as like hold on. If you consider these sort of properties as like goods that are being deprived, then yes, it would be harmed. I don't consider them to be harmed. To these properties.
I was in the middle of the sentence.
Yeah, go on. You're just mischaracterizing what I said.
What I was saying was that most future like ours accounts or deprivation accounts specifically, they have like the theory of well-being working in the background, right? And then the types of things that have well-being, at least to the relevant moral extent, or the types of things which can be deprived, right? And so you can understand it to be like you're depriving, like, I don't know, a fetus of a future like ours, and it's harmful to the fetus because the fetus is a patient, right? But given something is a non-patient, then if I deprive it, it's not harmful. They want to explain the types of like language uses we have around harm. That being that at least whenever we're using harm in the moral way, it only applies to things that are morally relevant. But presumably under this view, you're actually committed to the view because you haven't made it clear and you haven't kind of made this kind of line in the sand where you can't harm like non-patients in a morally relevant way, which is like super fucking retarded. Presumably, given you don't draw that line in the sand, then you can harm. Then you can harm. Ryan, you're unmuted. Sorry. Yeah, you're good. You can harm like these non-patients in a morally relevant way.
Yeah,
which is like
yeah.
So the way you save it, wait. So you can kind of save it by giving some account of patienthood, right? And then given you give an account of patienthood, and then you say depriving a patient or depriving like some like thing which is morally considered as future valuable experiences. Keep in mind, value is a moral word,
Like,
so it would have
do
to be
you
something
do
morally
you want to make a
valuable.
YouTube channel where you can like teach people like how to debate, bro? Because like I'm not interested. I'm literally not interested in this at all. I specified this while
I'm not
I
interested
literally
in
specifically
understanding
cut you off so you didn't have to give me another Yugi lecture and explain to me this, because I specified that if it is the case that you think being able to photosynthesize would be a morally relevant property and that you're depriving them of, then trivially, what's it called? Then trivially, it would be the case, right, that you are morally, like, you're harming them in a morally relevant sense. But if that isn't true, then you wouldn't be harming them. So like, I don't understand actually. Like, I genuinely don't understand why you start giving me a Yugi lecture, like in the middle of my sentence or in the middle of the conversation. Also, who is doing that?
you're doing.
Shades on Albert with the
Okay.
glasses, Bruce hurt because he is savage. So many dead up, so many ashes. You did catch that?
We
Actually,
have no dead up.
so, sorry, bro.
There's that mango savage. What's it? Okay. Oh, what's it? Yeah. So, the point being, Shinra, that your view doesn't make that distinction. Maybe you make it in the background, but just from the description of the view alone, it entails the kinds of conclusions that I'm talking about. My point here is, all I'm trying to do is I'm like just saying you should probably describe your view better.
Maybe you can say it entails that like so different, like, or loads of entities can be harmed. I don't think it entails that loads of entities can be harmed in a morally relevant sense. But I mean, if this is all, like, can we conclude, please? Thank you.
Maybe. We haven't even gotten into the fucking discussion. It's just like, it's consistent on my view that my argument follows. It's inconsistent on your view because you just fucking disagree.
It's been an hour, bro. It's been an hour. Put the Yugi in the bag. Conclude.
I mean, if you agree that it's consistent on my view, sure.
It depends, like, what you're asking me.
Do you agree that my argument is consistent on my view?
Your argument. I don't think that it is. So, specifically, I don't think when you say consistent, do you mean like there's some of contradiction? Like I'm trying to say is entailed? Because I don't think there is any form of contradiction. No, I just don't think your argument actually justifies one of the specific presuppositions it has within it. But we can conclude, bro. I won't give my conclusion.
Yeah, I mean, that was just, by my lights, that was just the subject of the debate because that's all you were harping on. So that's just you conceding the debate by my lights.
What were you asking me? Sorry?
I said, by my lights, that was just the subject of the debate, right? Because what you were trying to do is give some internal critique of the argument.
No, it wasn't an internal critique. Hello? What? Yeah, okay, actually, no, if you think that was the critique, we can conclude.
Well, the whole point you made prior was just that, like, on my view, it can't be, you don't see how it's justified because you're unsure why these types of things are relevant. And then I just, like, I mean, obviously they're fucking relevant, right? I mean, they're the kinds of things that I value. Unless you were trying to ask me, like, why you should value them, which, I never made that claim, I don't really care. I mean, I'm never going to convince you of my view compared to the photos. What is the guy doing?
Sorry, go on. Is this your conclusion, by the way?
I mean, I can conclude. So, point being,
Yo, why does mine get bad when they start concluding, bro? What's wrong with this guy?
I don't know, man. What is this guy doing? Anyways, so point being, my view is like, my view is obviously consistent with it. Shinra tried giving this like weird internal critique, and even if you like don't interpret it as an internal critique,
okay, yeah. So I'll start my conclusion now. Sorry, wait. What? I thought you were done.
This guy plays a video and he's like, okay, let me start my conclusion. Where's that one fucking video of Don Pollo? The Wait, see, can you mic up so Shinra can play the Don Pollo soundboard and I can laugh?
Yo, what's up?
Shinra, play the soundboard. What's he talks? He's muted. Oh man.
That's a shame.
Conclude. Yeah, okay. So, yeah, it's obviously consistent on my view. Shinra, at least, Jesus. Shinra, at least by my understanding, gave this like weird internal critique. Jesus Christ. He gave this like weird internal critique where he tried to show that my view like is inconsistent with it. And his contention, by the way, was like he doesn't think that it's like relevant. Well, it's fucking my view, so obviously it's relevant. I'm the fucking dictator of what's relevant on my view, but whatever. Aside from that, Shinra is like very, very confused on the future, like ours position. He doesn't accept that the deprivation is to count of harm. Like agrees with premise one, lol. And aside from that, like he's just kind of been like confused at this entire conversation. I got like fucking dragged into a debate by this guy when I woke up like an hour ago, and like the first thing I did was debate him because he's been like harassing me to debate him for like a week.
Cheers, bro. Are you done?
Or something. I'm done there.
Okay. Sorry. Specifically, the sort of critique that I was given to his view was that there's no reason that I should grant that. Specifically, there's a relevant I hate this guy. There's a relevant distinction, right, in the case of like a human in comparison to a fetus under his view. So specifically, I initiated the debate through asking the guy, okay, would it be morally justifiable for me to end the life of one person in order to bring about the lives of two people? He said no. So I was like, okay, if that's true, and if it is morally justifiable to end the life of one person to bring about the lives of two, right, was that there's some relevant difference between the two, such that explains why one of these cases is morally justifiable and the other one is not. Then when I asked him for the relevant difference between the two, he didn't give me the relevant difference, right? And instead he did a Ryan Harrison Jr. and just started making noise, right? You can tell that the guy's really confused, especially when he has like retard as his profile picture. But regardless of that, it wasn't an internal critique. It wasn't an internal critique. Right. Instead, I was questioning him for the specific sort of motivations he has for his view. He hasn't given me the motivations, right? And but yeah, that's my conclusion. If you like this type of videos, guys, please remember to like and subscribe. This has been Shinra. That was Yugi. His name is Yanni. Debating is his game, and whatever is his game. And yeah, that's it, bro.